Hey all, Scott here. Well, this is a game that needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce it anyway. Space Engineers. I finally pulled the trigger on this game here a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I've been watching it for the last little while, and I've been really impressed by the scope, the scale, and the development of it for the last little while. And I really knew that once I kind of got into it, I probably wouldn't get out of it for a long time. However, I was still waiting for the game to be a little bit more feature complete, I guess is probably the term for it. It's finally getting to the point where I'm really finding it interesting. Weapons work, asteroid mining works. A lot of the survival mode is starting to be in there, and the developers have started to state that they're going to start implementing a game. It's about at the same state it was when I got into Kerbal Space Program, what Kerbal Space Program was last year. So I was really looking forward to this. Right now I'm premature salvaging the survival ship. If I start on an easy survival, you end up with two large ships to begin with, and I got the hang of it, started building a few things, started working out how this stuff works, and I'm just going to rename this to my premature salvager. I heard that term from Star Citizen and I can't let it go. I really do like that. But anyway, I'm basically going to grind up this ship for all its components and parts, and this is a grinding machine that I made. It's basically a small ship with 5 grinders on the front and a welder on the back for construction. And it's going to help me construct my first large ship. And this is all done in survival, so I have to collect all the parts. And I figured it would just be easier to grind up the ship that's already there than to actually just mine them all. Now, I'm still using some mining resources. I've got the understanding of how the refinery works, how the assembler works, how the arc furnace works. But just for the sake of getting completed, let's get going. I'm also going to start using, getting into some of the boarding ships, because there's some NPC ships in this game that I have to try to get into the boarding. Now, I am running this at 2 times high speed. This is going to be a short introduction because, quite frankly, I want to get back to building. I'm going to probably feature this show just as much as KSP. KSP, I'm going to get back into that here fairly soon again, just because I'm still waiting for a couple of mods to be updated to 0.25. And then I'm probably going to just alternate between Space Engineers, building, and KSP series, just to give myself some diversity so I don't get tired of it. Plus, Space Engineers is multiplayer, and my buddies have all got this now, and we've all started getting into it, so it should be a lot of fun to just kind of cooperatively build stuff and then crash it. So now, once I get finished salvaging this up, I also have to step out here shortly and go do some mining because I need some uranium. Although this ship probably does have enough fuel after salvaging the one ship. Mining is actually kind of an interesting mechanic. You have to physically drive your ship through the asteroids. It bounces around. It will take damage inside the asteroid. It really does give you the impression that your designs do kind of have to fit within certain engineering guidelines in order to work, and that's the fun part. Now, occasionally I died. I'm not sure why in that particular scenario. It could be perhaps that a rogue piece of rock hit my cockpit, but I thought maybe the cockpit had been destroyed, but I come back to it to find out what was going on. Couldn't get in there, so I got to whip out the handrail here and just dig out a little bit around it so I can get back to the cockpit. And it turns out the ship did not seem damaged, although I think I did lose a thruster. And maybe the thruster blowing up that close to my cockpit was the issue. In any case, just going to continue to pour through that, getting that uranium that I needed. The asteroids are made up of various different types of resources, including cobalt, magnesium, iron, uranium, which is the most important one because it's what powers your energy reactors, and without those, your suit requires regular recharge in order to keep you alive in space, which is the basis of the survival mode. Now, I've also got a rear view camera on this one, so I'm trying to use it to back myself out of the hole, having a few little bumps. And yeah, you got to make your mining ships tough. You got to give them some good heavy armor on there just to make sure that they get out, and even then they're still going to take some damage. So in any case, you build a couple of small ships, you get used to it, and then you start on the large ships, because you build the small ships to kind of support the large ships. In this case, like mining and stuff like that can be done pretty easily and pretty regularly with a small ship, but you do still end up with a fair amount of waste. You can't use gravity in a small ship. So, as you can see here, I'm just doing some repairs on my mining vessel because I did lose a thruster. So I should repair that, repair all the metal around there. Slap on a new thruster. Turns out I don't think I have the resources I need to make it, so I'll have to go get some. So I just decided I was just going to keep going with missing one thruster here. In this particular instance, I was probably looking for a resource that I needed to finish a part. Anyway, just another side note here. This game is developed by a company called Keen Software House. I'm currently using it unmodded. I will be modding the snot out of it later, trust me. But I should probably get more familiar with the core game mechanics before I start changing things, like I did with Kerbal Space Program. Spent a lot of time just playing around with the game itself before I actually started modding it. And then when I modded it, it becomes a bit of an addiction and just gets worse and worse and worse. But anybody who's kind of into that scene is probably familiar with that sort of a mentality. This asteroid I'm coming up on here is pretty hollow, but I can see some different types of ore in it. I was looking for gold, I believe, because I was looking for gold to make a particular part, because the game makes starts out with the raw ores. You throw them into a refinery, and then they become ingots. Then you can turn those ingots into useful components. Then you have to carry those components on yourself while you're placing down blocks or machines, and then you have to weld them up and they consume the components out of your inventory. It's actually kind of a neat system. It does make, you know, the utility of ships that can carry a lot of cargo and do a lot of work all at once very, very handy. Like the grinding machine I used to grind up the ship, or the welding ship. Just punch through asteroids and find the resources I needed. Basically, again, one of those survival games where you start out with very simple tools, you build better tools, you make it bigger, you get more, and you keep going until you basically get tired of surviving or you're looking for a challenge. Now, there are dedicated servers out there for people that are interested in PvP. It's a bit of a different sort of PvP game. There's a couple of interesting things, because in the PvP in this game, it's all about, you know, resource hoarding, almost. It's kind of interesting that way, rather than, say, you know, just shooting your opponent in the face. I like that. I'll probably look into some PvP multiplayer. There's also PvE servers where, you know, they kind of turn off the violence and it's basically just build utopias, if you're into that kind of thing. And then you can build like large communities of various people just building whatever they feel like. Hearts can hint. It's kind of cool, really. So I'm just going to mine all the resources I need. This was a good rock because it was hollow, and it was also full of lots of some of the rare resources that I needed. I may have to do a couple of trips. I'm not going to make you guys sit through that. I did have to do a bit of collecting just to get established. Especially with the power sources, I needed a fair amount of uranium just to make sure I didn't have to worry about looking for that. Anyway, so I'm going to be getting into building a large ship, or basically going to eventually grind up the starter platform and everything that they were offered and turn it into one home ship that we can move around from wherever we need to collect things or attack the cargo ships or whatever we decide to do. And a few buddies have gotten on board this, kind of like the whole Firefly family in space sort of idea. So this is the beginnings of it. I haven't named it. Just going to work on it, and I'm going to my next episode with Space Engineers is going to be the build process of this particular ship. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a montage with it and go through some of the interesting challenges that I ran into with this ship and some of the sort of the ingenuity that I had to overcome said challenges, along with my friends. My buddy over there is in the welding ship that I created that you see me grinding up. The front end's the welder, the back end's, well, depending on your perspective, I guess. One end's a welder, the other end's a grinder. It's just a setup for a utilitarian ship that I needed to basically help me build this platform. And while I'm sort of laying the groundwork, my buddy's following behind me with the welder to start building the scaffolding, because there's a lot of cargo room on that little ship as a comparison to what an individual space engineer guide can hold. And this design is going to, and as such, he can basically just continuously build as I just lay the groundwork, which is a good setup for this game. It does add some interesting cooperative abilities, because therefore you know, there's always something for someone to do. Especially, you can either build individual ships, or if you want to work on it together. The survival part's really neat, because you just start by laying down blocks, which are basically the girder skeletons of them, and then your buddy comes along and welds them up or continues working on them. It creates kind of an interesting sort of factory system. Like, for example, to weld up one of those thrusters that I was putting in, I'd probably have to start, weld it up, run back to the inventory, grab more stuff, weld it up again, and keep going back and forth probably 10 times just to carry all the resources I needed to actually finish that component. Maybe not quite that much, but you get the idea. Whereas with this inventory, or this welding ship, it allows me to basically put a huge inventory on it, put a welder on it, and he could just follow me and keep welding and welding and welding until he runs out of resources to thing. And then we either have to collect more, or we have to, well, that's what we have to do. We have to collect more or steal them somehow, depending on your point of view. Right now in the survival modes, the best ways to get resources are to mine the asteroids and refine it, or if you put on the cargo ship option, you get some NPC ships that spawn in, and there's different types. There's small, like private sails, all the way up to military ships, which are very, very dangerous. But but you can pretty much salvage or recover all the resources from any ship. Like, it's a 100% thing. If you grind a ship up, if you grind a block that's been built, as long as you have space in your inventory, all that stuff will go into your inventory, and then you can put that block somewhere else. That allows you to basically, you don't waste anything by salvaging it. So, or if you build a ship and then decide it's not good and you need to replace it with something else, you can just recover the ship and then keep building, which is really good. That way you just you focus on the building rather than resource management. At least at this stage. They may add something like that later. You never know. It just depends on how the developers want to go with it. Well, I'm gonna wrap up this video here shortly. Just to give you a quick setup again. This is only a basic introduction on the vanilla version of this game. I haven't got into any mods yet. However, I was looking through the Steam Workshop, and there's lots in there that interest me. So I'll start looking into some of those and seeing how well those work. I'm especially into the mechanical stuff. That should be really cool. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to send me a message through YouTube. If anyone's interested in a multiplayer game, again, get in touch with me. I'll put my my email address in the comments below, and any links that are relevant. So again, thanks again for watching, guys. This is Scott Cook signing off. See you in space, engineer.